to edition 6 of All Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn, and Kiri Pritchard McLean. Just before we do start, we'll do our usual disclaimer. Just to let you know, we are talking about serial killers because we're interested in them, we find them fascinating, we're not hero worshipping them, we don't want you to go out and commit any murders, well, depending on how many podcasts we end up getting through. We don't want you to kill anyone, we're sorry if someone's been murdered that you know, but as long as we're doing this podcast, we're not writing to him in prison.
So, episode 6, we're looking at Peter Kurten, the Dusseldorf Vampire, as he was known.
Yeah, Dusseldorf. We will be saying Dusseldorf.
Dusseldorf.
Because I cannot abide people who, when it's a foreign place, they have to put on the accent. Do you know what I mean? Or like if someone watches a film and goes, yes, I was watching this film the other night and Gerard Depardieu was in it. Gerard Depardieu.
I quite like things like that though, because that's a fairly good indicator that someone is an arsehole.
Yeah, actually.
Like, you know, if they in conversation and they're like, do. And you're like, well, I know I don't need to carry on this conversation with you because you've told me all I need to know in those 2 words.
Yeah, or people who call red wine vino tinto. That really gets me.
I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone who said that.
Oh, I have, don't worry. Don't worry.
Being a Welsh person though, I noticed that no one's ever like, oh, well, when we visited Dolgellau, they don't bother with the friggin' accent then, do they?
Although I do actually, being half Welsh, I say Llanderbeer and Llandovery.
Good,
like
good for you.
There we go.
So, Peter Kurten, he really freaks me out when I look at pictures of him because he looks like, you know, really cheap ham that's grey. He looks like he's made out of that. He's horrible. Or like, you know, Billy Bear meat you get from Morrison's.
Dusseldorf ham monster.
He's just got a horrible hue to him. I know the pictures are black and white, but he just looks really creepy.
He looks clammy. I know what you mean. He's got a clammy quality to him.
Yeah, he looks like when you had your socks on in big boots all day. Like how your skin comes out after that. He's just really creepy looking. Him and Rasputin freak me out just to look at pictures of them. Yeah. So he was born in 1883 in Germany and is one of 10.
The oldest of 10.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was the oldest.
Appears to be the only son.
Mm-hmm.
And that none of the brothers were mentioned. Had, as we know now, one of the main ingredients of being a serial killer.
Classic serial killer background.
Yeah, abusive father, alcoholic, and also used the added spice of sexually abusing his sisters and mother. So he's a horrible piece of work, his dad. He used to make the mum strip in front of the kids and then would proceed to have sex with her.
Yep.
And then started when they... not even when they came of age, but when they were a bit older, he started sexually abusing his daughters.
Yeah, Quebec Christmas at their house was brilliant, wasn't it?
Naked Twister. Charades. How many letters? 6. And you're doing them all on one hand. He started abusing his sisters as well. Because I suppose, I mean, this is no defence, but, you know, people, again, who don't know it's weird to put bread in the fridge.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know it's not alright to fuck your sister?
Yeah, exactly.
If that's what you've been brought up with.
That's all you're going to know, and you're going to think that that's acceptable. Or just normality, you know, like you say, bread in the fridge.
He moved out, and in fact, when he moved out, his dad finally got arrested or prosecuted for raping one of his sisters. So the authorities were involved in some way. So it's no surprise when you hear this, when we find out that he first killed people allegedly at the age of 9.
Yeah, on a raft, on a lake, apparently. He was on a raft with 2 other boys, and he drowned one of them, and the other one panicked and jumped in to try and save the other one, and he managed to hold both of their heads under the water and killed them both. The police thought it was just a tragic accident.
Yeah.
It's feasible, though, because, you know, we were discussing before, could you drown 2 people? But if someone's flailing around in water...
Yeah, because I was like, God, he was like... really strong 9-year-old is what I thought of, not like, oh, what a tragedy. I was like, bloody hell, he's got some upper body strength, which is the wrong way to look at it. But Rachel made the good point that, like, when you're in water, it's not like you can get purchase on anything. No. You're just sort of flailing and panicking.
Especially if your lungs are getting full of water.
Yeah.
It's mad panicking, isn't it? So, quite easy to do.
Killed 2 people in one day, which is a busy day for anyone, let alone a 9-year-old. Yeah, that's his first sort of murders. Also, someone else who was quite a big influence on him. Now, what are the odds of this? So he has an abusive alcoholic father who sexually assaults his mother, his sisters. He then starts to do the same. Mm-hmm. And he happens to live in the same building as a dog handler. Oh, there's nothing unusual about that. Until you know that the dog handler was like, oh, I'm going to take him under my wing. Oh, again, there's nothing unusual about that. Except the dog handler was into fucking and killing the dogs he found. Of course he was.
I have to say, Peter Kurten, he's living in a serial killer's Disneyland. He's had the perfect upbringing for murder. Everything that's happened to him has been horrendous, and he's thoroughly enjoyed all of it, from all accounts. And then the dog handler thing, to me, is like the icing on the cake.
Definitely.
If that was in a film, you'd think it was far-fetched.
Yeah. And so he started knocking about this dog handler who is like, oh, this is how you torture an animal. And also, while you're at it, might as well have sex with it. So he got a real taste for that. In fact, his favourite in the end was sheep.
Yeah.
Because he used to, he would stab the animal when he had sex with it. I was saying to Rachel earlier that I found out, and nothing to do with the fact that I'm Welsh, and I don't know how I found this out, but apparently why sheep are attractive prospects to have sex with in, like lonely places, is because apparently a sheep's vagina is very much like a woman's vagina. So there we go. I feel mildly offended by that assertion.
Well, imagine you grew up in the countryside, you're going to know things like this, aren't you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I feel like I was born knowing this knowledge. I don't think I've ever read it or heard it anyway. I just feel like that's something I know.
So basically, if you go and Google sheep's vagina, compare and contrast, and tweet us with your findings, because I'm not going to do it.
But yeah, he used to have a sex with sheep and stab them, and that would make him climax, was the actual act of stabbing.
Stabbing and seeing the blood.
Yeah, he had a thing about seeing and hearing blood, didn't he? As if he wasn't creepy enough as it was, old ham face.
His first murder was, apart from the two boys on the raft,
third
murder that we know of. 10-year-old girl in Cologne. She wasn't wearing cologne. It was in Cologne, the place. And it's a weird one, isn't it? The young girl was asleep in the pub that was owned by her parents. Peter Kurten creeps in, sexually abuses her, cuts her throat, kills her, goes back downstairs as knowing what he's done. I don't think he knew the family in the pub either. So they're all having a chat and looking after the pub, and they go upstairs and they find the daughter dead. Panic ensues, but what's happened is Peter Kurten has dropped his handkerchief at the murder scene, his monogrammed handkerchief with PK on, and everyone, because nobody knows who he is, but unfortunately for the girl's father, his brother was called Peter Klein. And Peter Klein had threatened a few days before, in an argument with his brother, that he was going to do something he'd never forget.
It's the worst luck ever.
It is the worst. It's
not only are you unlucky to have like a serial killer living and drinking in your pub and then killing your daughter, but then also the fact that if we're going to take away anything from this, never say to anyone, you're going to regret that, or I'm going to do something that you'll never forget. Because chances are they're going to get their kid murdered, and so someone's going to leave a monogrammed handkerchief with your initials, and you'll be like, oh no, honestly, it wasn't me, it's all circumstantial.
I just imagine, I'm going to do something you'll never forget. I imagine that after this murder, a couple of days later, when a turd in a box arrived, it was just, everyone was like, oh right, okay, that was it then. But, if you're don't monogram your things if you're gonna go out killing.
Yeah, I think that's rule 101 of serial killer, is it? It's like, don't feel you have to write your name in everything that you own.
Don't carry ID. Don't leave DNA, and don't monogram your handkerchiefs.
He's lucky it's before DNA, because it would have been all over the place. Because
it
was quite a scandal, because they knew that the girl had been sexually assaulted, this little girl. And the fact that they thought it was the uncle for a while, who he did eventually get off. Mm-hmm. I think he had an alibi, but certainly for the first few days, weeks, he was... Well, everyone just assumed it, and kind of rightly so.
Yeah, you would.
It was him.
All signs pointed to old Peter Klein there, didn't they?
He was an arsonist as well, wasn't he? Which apparently is another sign of psychopathy. I don't know how you say that word.
Psychopathy.
That sounds too Egyptian. We're in there now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Being mental.
That'll do. It's apparently that is one of the big things, torturing animals. Some people do like to set fire to things, but Peter Kurten liked to set fire to places like barns and quiet places, empty buildings, because he liked to think that the homeless would be there trying to get some rest, and he'd hear them screaming as they burnt.
Yeah, and that would get his rocks off.
I think it was something like 15 buildings in a very short space of time that he set fire to.
I think he's the most industrious of all the serial killers that we've done so far.
He's a busy guy.
Because, John Wayne Gacy racked them up, but... So other than these sort of 3 murders, Peter Kurten's sort of main spree as the Dusseldorf Vampire was... What was it? Something like... It was between February and November 1929.
Yeah.
And it was like definitely 9 murders, possibly over 60, 7 attempted, and a load of sexual assaults. So he would do like 2, sometimes 3 in a night. He was really, really crazy. He was, but also hardworking.
Absolutely mad. I mean, I know all of the murderers we talk about on this show are mad, but I think he takes a biscuit. He's absolutely bonkers. I mean, I actually did hear, I read somewhere that he did go to a doctor and try and get some help.
Oh, really?
Well, the doctor just said to him, Mr. Kurten, pull yourself together.
No.
Really shit joke.
Oh, okay. Well, no, because I was thinking, is that how that joke was invented? And that's been kept around like a cautionary tale?
I've been keeping that for best on this podcast. And he was also married, and I was going to do a joke saying, there you go, a pair of curtains.
Whee!
Oh, come on.
Oh, no, I thought he genuinely went to a doctor.
No,
I was
he
like,
didn't.
oh, wow, that's very self-aware.
No,
but no,
I should have made
joke.
it more of a cheesy build-up there, shouldn't I? But yeah, he was just completely mad. And I think he was quite comfortable with being mad as well. I don't think, there's no distress. I don't think there was any sort of mental turmoil. I think
I've got a theory about him, that he was kind of finding... I think he knew that he was going to be a serial killer. You probably do when you start fucking your sister.
Yeah.
Maybe it occurs to you then that you're probably not on the same wavelength as everyone else.
Yeah.
Because the police found it hard to track him down because he had like an ever-evolving MO. So some of them he would kill with a hammer. Some people he drank the blood of. Some were men, some were women, some were kids, some were adults, some were raped.
Some he strangled, some he didn't.
Yeah. There's no other serial killer that, other than, like, you know, like, so like Elizabeth Bathory was like, I'm going to try all this, but it's all torture. Whereas him, some of them were, you know, like burnt, and it all changed all the time. And I think he was just going, you know, when you feel like you need to change, so you move your furniture around in your room. He was sort of like that, but with serial killing. Yeah. He was just like, oh, what's right for me?
Just trying it out.
Yeah, seeing what fits. There was one similar thing with a lot of them. He stabbed them in the temple.
Yes,
which is a really brutal place to start. I mean, there's no good place, is there? But
that's like slaughterhouse murder, isn't it? Like I'd kill a cow or straight.
It's the softest part of the head, isn't it?
Oh. It's just horrible. Like, it's such a vulnerable part of
and it's right by the eyes. You just see them fill out with blood. Ugh.
And if anything, I do remember at school once actually, our head teacher, Mr. Callahan, they banned bouncy balls, you know, the really big, hard bouncy balls. Yeah. And he said, if that hits someone in the temple, they're going to be dead. And he carried on eating his dinner and just bounced it across the room, as if he wanted it to hit someone in the temple.
Right. And how many barns has he burnt down in the last few years? What odd behaviour.
He does live in the countryside.
Oh dear me. I bet he knows exactly how similar a sheep and a woman's vag is. Nightmare. So yeah, he kind of went on a spree for these between February and November 1929. Obviously it's the Depression, the Wall Street crash. So I think that's why they took him, because there was so much going on every night. And there were plenty of things where people got eyewitness accounts. So, like...
Yeah, he goes into a restaurant, doesn't he? And he tries to start abusing the waitresses and visitors, customers, whatever you want to call them.
Didn't he just try getting off with women?
Yeah, I think he was trying to, like, sexually assault women.
Like some 1920s Russell Brand. Oh, Shagger of the Year!
And, like, there's apparently one of the waiters comes out... And he's going, oh, what are you doing? And then I think he stabbed him and legged it.
Just ran off into the night. So people, from that, there would have been plenty of eyewitness testimony, because I imagine that you don't go, it's not like Britain where you go, well, we'll just leave, it's probably a domestic, and look down. Everyone will be like, what is going on here? So they knew what he looked like, and they knew all this crazy stuff was happening. I suppose they're more worried about the fact that they were definitely on the verge of going to war with the rest of Europe.
Well, there you go, there's probably that hanging over them. But...
He was in the army for a bit.
He deserted, though.
Deserted.
Which sounds about right. Coward.
Oh, look at you. You're hardline.
Well,
I can imagine you in the 30s handing out white feathers like no one's business.
I just... Come on, running away. Just get on with it, will you? But yeah, he's a coward, isn't he? Oh, I can't fight in the army, but I can stab loads of kids.
That is weird, isn't it? You'd think that if someone goes, you know how you like killing... How about you go and do it somewhere a bit hotter? Oh, in fact, no, it would have been, would it? Would it have been hotter? I don't know.
No, it'd been bloody freezing.
Yeah. Mustard gas might have warmed things up a bit.
I think that he just was very, very odd man. In fact, as we're going to get to it later, some of the things he says...
I'll be honest, Rachel, I think that is an understatement. Roy Cropper of Coronation Street is a very odd man. I think Peter Kern is a ham-faced serial killer of...
Complete... madman.
Yeah, he's utterly bonkers.
Bloodthirsty lunatic. It's a bit odd, isn't it?
Oh, it's a queer fish, that one.
Do you know what he did with that hammer? He's very odd, isn't it?
So loads of weird. He killed a pair of foster sisters. One was 5, I think one was about 14.
He did manage to obtain a wife, though.
Oh, yeah.
Which surprises me. It's very odd when I
very romantic circumstances.
It was, and I always think like, what Peter Kurten did was he met this woman who'd been in prison for murdering her fiancé or husband at the time. She'd served 5 years, I think. They met on the outside, and he
realised they had a lot in common.
Yeah, loads in common. Started repeatedly proposing to her, and she kept saying no, until one day when he said, if you don't marry me, I will kill you. And she said yes.
I bet, though, if you've murdered your ex-husband, that's quite a romantic gesture. It's like one of those, girls when you're in high school and they're like, oh, it's so cute because he said if I didn't go out with him, like, this is how much he loves me, he was going to throw himself in the road. And you're like, right, well, that's really bad news. He's going to be trouble in 3 months' time. Oh, no, he just really, really loves me and he never sees his dad. Right, brilliant, but I'm just saying...
He doesn't want me to go out to the school dance because... He said that if I do and he sees me with another boy, he'll have to kill us both. That's really sweet. Oh yeah, he sounds great. He sounds brilliant. But yeah, this wife of his, it sounds that they had quite a happy, if that makes sense, normal, to a certain extent, marriage. He seemed quite taken with her.
Yeah, he doesn't, because a lot of the time when he got captured, the focus was always on making sure that his wife was okay, which is sort of quite sweet, really.
In a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's no Moulin Rouge, is it? But it's certainly nice that he cared about someone other than himself.
Yeah.
Briefly.
So,
yeah, he killed a foster sisters, 5-year-old, and I think one was 14. And he wrote to... This is the thing, he was ever-changing. So, with the 5-year-old girl, he wrote to the papers and told them where the body was.
Yeah.
And then he didn't do that for any of the others. So he's like, maybe I'm one of those serial killers that writes to... No.
Am I a writer? Let's have a go. No, I'm not. Do I like hammers? Sometimes. He just can't make up his mind what he's doing. But it's such a strange thing why did he want them to know where that 5-year-old... Unless he felt guilty. Unless he felt bad. Because that's a 5-year-old girl, Maybe he had a moment of...
No, they never write to the papers because they feel guilty. They write to the papers because
they want them
proud.
found. Yeah, that's true.
It's a boast, isn't it? He's like Madonna, who's like, he's going to turn up in Lycra and redefine disco again. He just is ever-changing. One of the creepy ones to me, I think, is... he apparently some woman he was following, and he was trying to badger her into having sex with him. And she turned around and went, I'd rather die than have sex with you. And he took a hammer to her. So that's just... Don't throw down the gauntlet if someone looks like they've been fucking dogs since they were 9. That's just a bit of casual advice. Like, I never think with sexual assaults that a woman is ever asking for it, or a man. I'm not someone who's like, oh, just because you're wearing a short skirt. But I tell you what, if they look a bit weird, don't say that. Don't be like, you know what, I'd rather cut my own uterus out than have sex with you, because chances are it's going to end up in someone's fucking office in a jar of formaldehyde.
I think maybe, let's get you to a shelter for the night. Might be a better response to save your neck.
I'd go, oh, okay, only if you beat me in a race first. And I'll time you, and then when they run off in the other direction, I'd run off.
That's so good. Do you know, I actually thought, if you just went, right, but we need to get there quickly, and then just run really, really fast.
Yeah, I couldn't keep it up there.
I reckon under pressure I could win.
Do you?
I reckon if I was threatened, I'd be like Mo Farah. If you put me at the end of the 100-metre sprint and took that starting pistol to my back of my neck and said, your family are all held in a basement somewhere, you've got to win this, I reckon I could do it.
No, I think there's too much of me.
I think I could, under pressure, yeah. I mean, it'd probably kill me. Very unhealthy.
It's like being a fox, isn't it? It's like, which is the worst way to die? From your heart beating out your chest and you're having a heart attack, or being ripped apart by dogs. It's like, neither's, there's no surrounded by fat grandchildren in that option, is there?
No, there's not. Not that I'm wanting to experience the sheer terror that will make me run as fast as Mo Farah, but, don't come looking for me, is what I'm saying.
Unless we want another Olympic hopeful, which, who knows, we might need you.
I'm too old now. I'm too old. I could never be in the Olympics now.
If they open it up and they're like, right, there's a new category and it's knowing a lot about people who've killed other people, I think you'd be at the top of the list.
We'd be alright, wouldn't we?
Yeah. The final victim is Maria, is the most intriguing to me, because her story's amazing as well. And not as in, it's amazing, but there just seems to be loads of weird coincidences in his story, and this is one of them. So basically, Maria is at Dusseldorf Dusseldorf station.
She did it.
I thought you said it, Dusseldorf.
Dusseldorf,
just near Collyhurst. So she's at the station. A guy turns up and said, "Oh, do you want me to walk you to a hostel?" So she's like, "Oh yeah, that's great." And as they're walking, he's like, "Oh, we'll take a shortcut through the woods." And as he says that, she remembers reading about this murderer who's been offing people in the woods. One Peter Kurten. So she goes, "You know what? I'm not going to walk through the woods with you." And he's like, "Why wouldn't you walk through the woods with me?" She's like, No, we're not going to do this." He starts getting really angry with her and trying to take her. He's like, "Just come this way." And she's freaking out and getting more and more upset. And then this guy comes along and is like, "What's going on here?" And she's like, "This guy is trying to get me to go into the woods with him." And he's like, "Right, okay, I will walk you home." And that guy who walks her home is Peter Kurten.
Yeah, Peter's thinking, hold on a minute. If she's gone into the woods with anyone, it's me. You jog on, pal.
I've not brought this hammer out for nothing.
That is
like the worst luck.
Oh, it's the worst luck. It's terrifying, isn't it? It's like if that was in a sort of American horror film, you'd be going, as if, like, somebody going, "Oh, I'm not going there with you. Hey, why don't you come with me?" And it's like Freddy Krueger or something.
Yeah.
You just...
I had a similar experience on my birthday a couple of years ago. We all went out and found this girl in like a tiny top and a tiny dress with no shoes on, really pissed, saying, "All my friends have left me." And she was just so hammered, and we were like, "Where are your friends?" And we were trying to find them, and then trying to like go on her phone and see who she phoned last. And they just kept like hanging up and being like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "Oh," and then she went weird on us, and she's like, "These people are trying to take me somewhere." And I was like, no, we're trying to get you to your friends. So like me and Ed, Easton, comedian, member of Gaines Family Gift Shop, we walked over to the Ritz. And as we got there, like these three horrible, like, "Right, darling," kind of like Essex lads were like, and they were like, "Where have you been?" She's like, "These people have been with me for ages and I've been trying to find you." And we just sort of went, "Right, there you go, you can have her now," because she was drunk and annoying. And then as we were walking away, Ed just went, "I feel like we've definitely just handed her over to her potential attackers." So that didn't feel great.
Oh, yeah, it's I don't know these men. Just go with them.
You'll be safe.
You'll be fine.
Come on, it's 2014. This girl, he took her back to his place, raped her, and then let her go because she said she promised that she wouldn't remember where his house was.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, I won't be able to remember where this is."
And he went, "Okay," which shows that, it's something I've read a lot about with psychologists. They say that once they get to killing a certain amount of people, they tend to mentally unravel, which is usually how you catch them, which is awful though. It's like, we have to just let them kill a couple more and then we should catch them.
Then they're going to slip up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they get cocky and they also get sloppy. So
cocky and sloppy.
Well,
do double act.
I think they do hauntings, don't they? Do a summer season. It's cocky and sloppy.
Like Sticky Vicky, the next generation.
But yeah, they get complacent. And they they're not as fastidious as they were when they first started, and that's usually how you catch them. And it seemed like he was the same, that he would make, right, well, that was a stupid decision to make. He should have killed her if he wanted to get away with it. But she didn't tell anyone. This is where it gets really weird. Yep. She wrote a letter to a friend with the world's most German name, like Mrs. German.
Frau Germansklein.
It is that German, like, so she wrote to Frau Germansklein. And told her all about the sexual assault and the guy and things and how scared she was. And it never made its way to Frau Germanklein. It went to like Frau Firmenklein instead.
Frau Liebeschnitzen.
It went to a woman with a really similar name who opened it, read it and went, "What the fuck?" And just gave it to the police and told them. So they tracked this girl down, Maria, who then could remember exactly where his house was because it had a really distinct name. So the police went round and tried to see him. I don't think he was there. They said they were arresting him on suspicion of rape. And then he had to kind of confess everything to his wife. And that's when it all went awry.
Yeah. Well, he wanted his wife... he told his wife everything because he thought that she might be some sort of reward.
Yeah, because when he said, "Listen, I'm going to get arrested for rape," she was like... Her reaction, instead of being like, "You're a monster, I can't believe I shared my bed with you," was like, "Oh, brilliant, how am I meant to get money now?" So she sounds like a right piece of work in that she's like, "Oh no, that poor girl, how dare you?" And like, I barely even know you. She was like, She genuinely said to him, "You should just kill yourself, and then I'll kill me, because there's no way we can afford to live."
Yeah, because there's no way I'm having a stall on that Christmas market this year. If I see one more scoop of sauerkraut, very bizarre. Like, right, we've both got to kill ourselves then.
That's so weird, isn't it? If you found out your husband was or partner was a rapist, you wouldn't be like, really? And there's 3 more payments on that sofa?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great, we're going to have Bright House round again.
Straight away, you would just go, right. No, I'm not going to tell anyone. Hello, is that the police? As soon as you could get away and ring the police, I don't care how much you care about somebody, I would shop them immediately.
So what he said to her to do, though, he was like, he thought that she would get money for... Basically, he was like, go to the police station and dob me in and claim the reward. So he was kind of fixated on having a reward, because he confessed, he was like, I'm the Dusseldorf Vampire that the papers have been writing... Dusseldorf Vampire that the papers have been writing about. Go to the police, dob me in, and then you'll get a reward. Which is kind of like the nicest thing he ever did.
It is quite sweet and romantic when you consider everything else he's done.
I suppose that's the most you're going to get out of him as a gesture, isn't it?
Yeah. And also I think, maybe deep down he thought, well, she'll get the reward. And he was that arrogant, he thought, everything will be alright, they'll let me out.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, what, you had a pint of blood? Whatever, mate, go on.
As long as you didn't drive afterwards, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, so his wife dobbed him in. I don't think she got money in the end. She probably got the reputation of marrying a serial rapist and murderer. But he seemed to really care about her, and that he kept inquiring and being like, is she going to be okay? Has she got enough money? When he was arrested. So that kind of does show another side to him that we haven't seen. Because, when you find out things like that, you're like, well, maybe if he didn't come from a house where he had the shit kicked out of him...
He might have been
to watch his mum and dad have sex... That he is it possible that he would have been okay?
But having said that, when you look at his other 9 siblings, well, none of them committed any awful murders, as far as we know.
Yeah, maybe... Oh God, imagine there was a fleet of them.
A fleet?
Yeah, 10 of them. That's nearly a football team, isn't it? Football team of murderers. We should look into that. So he was caught and then he was executed in 1932.
Yes, he was guillotined, which is very popular.
I thought it would have gone out of fashion by sort of like the 1930s.
Well,
I thought it'd be really old-fashioned.
Very. I often forget that we are part of Europe and we are European. I don't have that style or panache. But the guillotine in France, for example, the last execution by guillotine was in 1977.
What?
Yep. And they only abolished it completely in 1982.
Oh God.
And obviously guillotine used to be a big favourite of aristocracy to be executed because it was the most noble way, having your head chopped straight off.
How's that noble? You've got to get on your hands and knees.
I know, but it's clean, it's quick, it's straight through. We had guillotines in Britain, I think, but I think it was more of a French...
We like to hang people, didn't we?
We loved hanging people, yeah.
Pierpoint was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were hangers. And I think we reserved, beheadings, really, for kings, queens and, stuff like that. Because it's the most noble thing. But in 1982, abolished in France. Astonishing. And it was a crime of passion, the last execution in France in 1977.
Oh, really?
It was a chap who apparently had murdered his girlfriend, from what I could be wrong here, because I was talking about it a few weeks ago. And there was a bit of thing in France crime of passion and all this, because they're big on the old emotions in France.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was the last person to be executed by guillotine. 1977.
He would have been wearing flares. Wouldn't he?
And he should have been guillotined.
And a wingtip shirt. That's what's weird about that.
But Peter Kurten was thrilled with this execution because obviously vampire Dusseldorf, he enjoyed drinking blood, he got sexually excited about seeing blood, and when he was chatting to, there was quite a lot of psychologists who spoke to him before he was executed, and he said to one of them, he said, "Can I ask a question?" He said, "Go ahead, Peter." And he said, "After my head has been chopped off, will I still be able to hear, at least for a moment, the sound of my own blood rushing from the stump of my neck? That would be the pleasure to end all pleasures."
That is revolting.
What do you do with somebody like that?
You go, right, well, you're not having your head cut off then. I'm sorry, it's not like that. It's not like you go out on a high. You don't get to do that. If anyone has, can this be a rule that we implement globally, please? That if a serial killer or someone who's done something horrendous, if we are going to give them the death penalty, which I don't necessarily agree with, but if they show, a sexual predilection to that type of death, Don't give it him.
Don't give him. It's like
Don't give
Albert
it him.
Fish, who, when he was going to the electric chair, and he said, the greatest thrill will be to die in the electric chair because he's a complete sadist. So, what do you do? And apparently he went to the guillotine, Peter Kurten, with a smile on his face.
Yeah, apparently when they cut his head off, he was still smiling. That is rotten, isn't it?
I do wonder, I mean, there's a thing where they say that when you have had your head chopped off.
Do you know you do that noise every time you say it?
Yeah. There is about 5 seconds, allegedly, whereby you're still...
They can get people's eyes to follow them, can't they?
Yeah.
And things like that you're still cognizant and... Ugh.
Horrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although, if I was going to be...
Do you reckon he did a jizz?
Of course he did. He would have been rock solid in his trousers, Peter Kurten, and he would have been waiting for it. And there's nothing you could have done to him that wouldn't have been a thrill for him, unless you drowned him, like you drowned those 2 boys. We're going to drown you like you drowned those 2 boys. That would have been fitting.
No, I think he would have liked that as well, because that's quite prolonged, isn't it?
Yeah, there's
lethal injection, a sneaky lethal injection. Go behind him, just pop it in his neck.
injection.
A sneakle, yeah.
He don't like anything, unless he just disemboweled him.
No, he would have loved that, all that blood.
He'd love it.
Tell you what,
no
it's
way
a
around
nightmare,
it.
isn't it? You just want to quietly kill a serial killer.
Take this cyanide tablet.
Horrible,
Gas chamber.
horrible.
So many options. So many. All of them horrible.
And he nearly tried most of them on those people as well.
Ugh.
So yeah, although he only did 9 and was convicted of 9, I think it was a 60 and above.
Yeah.
But I think what we were sort of chatting about earlier is because it was on the brink of, obviously 1929 was this year that he did it. That's the Wall Street crash. And then in the 30s, obviously, was the World War.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he just caught it at a time when they were so busy worrying about other things.
Yeah, about impending war and having no money and
Yeah.
everyone struggling. I think, yeah. I do think he killed a lot more, though.
Do you?
He was busy. He was constant, I think. I think there's, when you consider he set fire to barns and places like that.
Yeah.
How many people did he kill that were in barns? How many people did he, he drowned 2 kids when he was 9, allegedly.
And then it's years and years till his next killing.
And then years
yeah,
and years.
I don't buy that.
He must have killed his father. I mean, I reckon his dad probably bumped off a couple of people.
Do you think?
A couple of prostitutes, probably.
Ugh.
But as well, Peter Kurten did have relationships with older prostitutes.
Like Wayne Rooney.
Like Wayne Rooney. So I think he must have killed one of those. There's no way Peter Kurten's going to be having sex with a woman and not thinking about stabbing her.
Yeah, especially if he's so poor as well. That he's going, it's going to be a shame when I ejaculate because I'm going to have to spend the last of my money on this. Or I could just literally kill 2 birds with 1 stone and cave a head in with a hammer.
There you go.
And ejaculate again. I'm amazed as well because what we do is we research these serial killers and then we have a chat about them. Considering he's quite contemporary, there's not lots of information on him, which to me suggests that, because usually the information comes from like police sources and things like that, and newspaper reports, which just suggests that the police really didn't have their eye on the ball.
No, I don't think that. And this happens so often, I think. I mean, look at bloody John Wayne Gacy and BTK and people like that. I think especially in those days, the police they had no idea what they were dealing with, would they? I doubt in Germany in the early 1900s, I don't think there'd have been many serial killers.
No. It's not like you ship in a special department, is it?
Yeah.
And there's no DNA because they would have got him on the hanky otherwise.
And the fact that he moved cities as well. So he was living in somewhere Direen, and then he moved to Dusseldorf. It's that time
the
between...
police forces don't usually talk either, do they?
No.
There seems to be no picking up a phone or whatever.
And he had spent time in prison before for other offences.
Oh yeah,
so
he was in and out. In fact, he blamed when he killed those people. He said it was because he thought he got a very harsh imprisonment for something.
Yeah,
wasn't it like burglary or something like that?
I think he got 8 years.
Yeah, that was it.
For arson and theft or something.
It was something that was comparatively fairly minor. So when they said to him, "Why did you do all the murders?" and he said, "I was striking back an oppressive society."
Oh, okay.
Which is the kind of thing you find written on the maths book of a 14-year-old who's just started listening to Rage Against the Machine. And he's really annoyed me as well because apparently he was a trade unionist. And so was Dennis Nielsen. And I'm like, you can't let the lefties down. Please don't let them think that we're all murderers.
If you want to strike back an oppressive society, Peter, get a banner, join a group.
Yeah, start an e-petition. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah, do something, get down to wherever the equivalent of 10 Downing Street is in Germany. I have no idea.
I imagine it would have been Hitler's offices at the time.
Get down to Adolf's offices, have a word with him, get something changed. He was the Russell Brand of his day, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was, yeah. You're gonna see him doing his I'd love him to have a YouTube channel. That would be absolutely brilliant. That's what serial killers need, more YouTube channels. Although I don't count them as serial killers, a lot of these contemporary high school massacre shootings.
Spree killers, yeah.
They're sprees, they're not the same.
No,
they all have YouTube channels, don't they?
Yep. They like to document the fact that women don't like them, and then kill loads of people because of women not liking them.
Which is fair, innit?
Just lighten up, dude. Change your hair, maybe buy a new jacket. We're quite fickle.
Do some press-ups, you'll be amazed at what it does. So that is Peter Kurten. He's creepy, multi-talented serial killer.
Yeah.
We're going to go slightly further afield with our next, for episode 7.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at Charles Ng, aren't we?
We are, yes. Charles Ng and Leonard Lake, who sound like two country singers.
Yeah.
But they're not.
I think I have got one of their vinyls for 25p from it. Save the Children.
Or not, as the case may be, in their... from what they did. But yes, we're going to talk about them. And Charles Ng, quite interesting. Born in Hong Kong, went to boarding school in England, moved to America. It's going to be good.
Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone to thank?
Well, I mean, I'm sure we've thanked him. We'll thank Will Duggan again for our theme tune. We'd like to thank Brennan Rees for our logo. And thanks for everyone that tweets to say that they've enjoyed it. And thanks to Giggle Beats for hosting this on their website as well.
Yeah.
And thanks to the general listeners there and everyone that tweets in, because we do enjoy getting your tweets. Just don't be creepy.
Yeah.
That's quite worrying.
Yeah, because we live quite close and we're worried that someone's going to come and get us.
Yeah, I shouldn't say this on record. I live alone. And the back door is always left open. I do sleep nude.
Right, so this has been episode 6 of the All Killer No Filler podcast. We've been talking about Peter Kurten. Please join us for episode 7. We'll be talking about Charles Ng. Thanks very much.